That was some terrible, terrible music.
It was.
Oh my God. It's like being in, I'm not, nothing wrong with being in church, but that was like a really bad church, you know? Welcome to the Church of Facilitation.
Nice. Maybe we should
Yeah.
change the theme of it from tapas to
Yeah.
church.
But then I've been preparing some like a nice introductory spiel actually. And I think, you've got to be careful talking about churches and religion and stuff. So maybe we won't do that. Maybe this is a conversation we should have had before we started the live stream, John.
Possibly.
But that music was terrible.
It was
that was awful. I'm going to sort it out for next time. Anyway, welcome everyone to Facilitation Tapas. John and I have been in the kitchen cooking up some tasty treats for you all, metaphorically speaking, in the kitchen of Facilitation. Reading from the cookery book of participatory decision making. We
Nice.
have been, see, I've worked on that.
I could see you. Yeah.
And we're going to share with you 5 tips, which hopefully are not the types of things that you've seen before. If you haven't seen them before, let us know. If you haven't seen them before, let us know. It's all good feedback. So for those of you that don't know me or John, or even have attended one of our Facilitation Tapas Friday afternoon lunchtime sessions, we'll give a short introduction. Now, just to be annoying, John, would you like to go first?
Of course. I tried to keep it short, for sure. I'm not normally the one to keep it short. Hi, I'm John Spruce. I'm a Scrum trainer and enterprise coach, and have been working in the Agile space for quite some time and facilitating meetings of all shapes and sizes for a very long time. I had hair when I started doing it, so that's how long ago it was. Everything from very short, small meetings with only a few people through to helping large groups of people, 500 plus, to sort out a bunch of planning. So yeah, lots of interesting techniques. And during the pandemic, obviously the shift towards online and virtual facilitation, well, we've picked up a lot of techniques along the way of that. So wanted to sort of share some of those as well today. Ben.
John.
Thank you.
So my facilitation journey started when I was straight out of school. Funnily enough, when I was joining college, and I had a marvelous chap named Adrian Ballantyne who actually taught me probably more about facilitation than anybody else. And he was a wonderful chap. And to have those kind of skills bestowed upon me at the age of, 17, 16 was quite a treat. And it stood me in good stead. Since then, I've facilitated groups large and small. Small as 1, 2 people, 1 person facilitation, kind of like coaching, but doing small conflict resolution, large group planning, many things that everything you could kind of imagine, even going up to 100 or so people trying to create an organizational vision. So lots of experience. And as John said, the shift to mostly things being remote because of COVID, I really took as an opportunity to, I suppose, become more natural and comfortable in how I facilitate and try and bring more of me into what I do. And I hope that comes through in some of the suggestions that we are going to be sharing with you. Now, John and I are both coaches. And I think what you'll see is actually in a lot of what we suggest, there's a strong kind of coaching human element to what we're going to be sharing with you. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's fair. I think meeting people where they are and helping to be, with a coach, as a coaching sort of stance, one of the things you've got to be able to do is be coachable and be authentic. And I think we bring that through in our facilitation. We are very open and honest, maybe sometimes too open and honest, I don't know, but we're definitely open and honest. We bring our full selves to the facilitation. Although facilitation is a neutral process that we hold, you still need to make it interesting, and you still need to be able to help people engage. Online, it's even harder. A lot of people have the fear of being in front of cameras, in front of lots of people. How do you create that safety? Well, it starts out with expectations, really. So maybe we can start there, Ben.
Yeah, expectations. So we will be sharing a deck for what we will be talking about at the end. If you want it, if you do want it, please put your comment in the chat so we know who to send it to. And we will do that, which will summarize everything that we speak about and probably a little bit more as well. So the first thing that we will be talking about is purpose. Now, I think it's easy to appreciate that people are swamped with meetings, and many of the meetings are nothing but a waste of our time. And so our first tip is to really think about why. Why is the person who is being invited having to be there? Like what's going to make them get out of bed and want to attend? What's going to make them want to put aside perhaps the other thing that they have on their mind, everything they feel that they need to do, and come along to your workshop and give it their all? Now, a lot of the time when we think about the why, what we're doing workshops for, it's always very kind of hands-based. So here's some output. We're going to create something, a plan, whatever it may be. Or it's very head-based. We're going to leave with a new understanding. What we're talking about here is actually not talking about the hands and the head. We'll talk about that in a moment. But what we're doing here is talking about the heart. How can we speak to people's hearts and make them want to come along? Now, John, is there anything before I share my screen and show some examples of some purposes? What important stuff have I missed?
Well, I think really the problem to solve, I think that's kind of the issue that we're trying to solve here is important to reflect on. The reason why we often talk about purpose and outcomes, and we'll talk about these things shortly, is that the people tend to just put meetings in diaries and in calendars and not really tell people why they're turning up. So not only do we need to evoke that kind of emotive response of I need to be there, it's really important that I'm in that, but also we want to kind of rid the world of bad meetings. We don't want to just have a meeting blocker dropped in the diary, 15 people turn up, no one knows why, somebody talks for a while, and then everyone disappears again with no actions or no value. It's a huge waste. It's a cognitive waste. It's a waste of the business. It's a waste of value. It's a waste of time. So one of the problems we're trying to solve with this is if you understand why you're going and what the expectation is out the other side of the meeting or workshop or training, then maybe we can add a bit more value, and we can also enable people to vote with their feet. If it's not valuable to me, why am I even going? So I think the problem to solve, that's the thing I wanted to cover.
No, you're right. A clear purpose allows people to prioritize. It allows you to prioritize. It sets the frame for what it is you want to do. And we'll go through a structure at the end, tip number 5, which actually will tie this together and show you how you can kind of coach yourself almost to come up with better purpose and outcome statements for your sessions. But having a clear purpose statement allows other people to then make that priority call. So I was just like ruminating, what a word. I'm thinking, well, what would be a really terrible purpose statement to see on a workshop, John? Like, what's one of the worst things you could imagine?
Of a purpose?
Yeah.
Things like provide a status update. Oh, horrible. Makes me feel bad just thinking about it.
We had one once, which was the sprint reviews are too long.
That was the purpose.
Yeah.
Oh my
wasn't a purpose, just a statement. It annoyed people, but it wasn't a purpose. Actually, in that particular, so that status update example, if we're talking about the purpose, then it's really driving then beneath the surface, isn't it? And saying, well, who needs a status update and why? What is it that's kind of provoking this desire for a status update, especially if it's weekly? And we maybe I've already sent something out which talks about the status update. What's the point? If we think about the sprint review meeting, what was really interesting was that if we had pitched it to what ended up being the purpose was to allow teams more time to spend with each other to learn about the implementation of what they were doing, so they didn't feel so isolated. And the purpose was then saying to reduce the feeling of isolation in the teams, to increase your expertise and the breadth of the product. Then that would have made people want to attend more than just saying, oh, the sprint reviews are too long.
Yeah, it gives a purpose, it gives a reason, doesn't it? And it's like, oh, I've got some ideas about how I can solve that problem. It's not just they're too long. Because the answer is either make them smaller or cancel them. That's not really helping, is it? It's not really solving the root cause.
So we're talking here about why. Like, why do people need to attend? I think we will Also, before we share the screen, let's talk a little about tip number 2 as well, because if we share the screen too early, then it will spoil all the surprises, John.
It will.
And no one likes that, do they?
No.
No one likes that. So tip number 2. So we'll show you an example of purpose in a moment. But tip number 2 was talking about outcomes. And this is where it does get a bit more real. We're not talking about agendas yet. We will show you an example of a particular type of agenda, which we're not going to cover in detail today. We do cover it in our facilitation course, though, and there'll be some examples outlined in the deck that we can make available afterwards. But it's really saying for the outcome that what is going to be different, and maybe even for who, as a consequence of people investing their time in being with you in that session. So what will be different? What is the outcome? Now, sometimes the outcome can be some output. I don't think we're here looking to be absolutely dogmatic and say that never the twain shall meet. Outcome can never be output. It all depends on your context. Same as a purpose. You can't really judge a purpose objectively unless you understand the system that kind of bore it. So if you're looking at a purpose and an outcome and you're thinking, well, that's really rubbish. This purpose seems to be to make the reviews longer and the output is, a new time limit for the sprint review. But actually, maybe in that context, maybe that is exactly the right thing to do. So it's always very contextual. And when we are talking about the outcome, we are generally talking about things which are up here, creating a shared understanding, some new knowledge, furthering some kind of idea, generating new ideas, and or talking about something which is for these things here, for our hands, a plan, as an example, some kind of artifact, some rules, a new thing to experiment with, even an experiment itself. The outcome is the thing that people can leave with, the change that we're looking to make, which enables people to then achieve that higher purpose. John?
I agree. I think there's some really interesting. I think if we don't have an idea of the why and we don't have an idea of what the outcome will be, and the outcome can be an output, as Ben mentioned there, it could be a decision, it could be learning, it could be a document, it could be a requirement, it could be any number of things. But if we haven't got a clear idea of what the outcome might be and the why being there, as a facilitator, it becomes almost impossible to run the session. And I say that because people will go down rabbit holes, people will have side conversations, they will not understand and anchor back in to a shared understanding of what we're trying to get out of the session. And it gives you an opportunity to set the scene at the beginning. We're here because of this reason, and this is the outcome we're looking for today. Anything else that deviates? Hey, we use a car park or we use something similar to park those questions, park those discussions for another time. Let's focus our energy on and make the best use of our time together. I think it's an important thing.
It is. Well, I was just contemplating. Perhaps we could get something going on the side here, a little bit of interaction, because I'm going to put into the chat a link to our HAR slides, a very simple word cloud, where, as John and I are talking about some of the issues with things not having a purpose or an outcome and the benefits of having a purpose and outcomes for your workshops or meetings, I have raised a question: when workshops and meetings have no purpose or outcomes, they are what? Now, I haven't turned on the profanity filter. Oh, no, I have done.
Oh, yeah.
I have done a profanity filter, yeah. Don't want anything too embarrassing, do we? So we'll see what people come up with. Hopefully this will work nice and smoothly. Now, there's a couple of comments that have come in, actually, on the chat here. One from Dan Gardner. Hey, Dan. No purpose or outcome at all. That's what he says here. Let's see if I can get this up on the screen. There we go. No agenda or purpose at all. Often I see meetings called so that one person can tell all others the plan that they've come up with. Now, John, there's a bit of, I want to be contentious about this one a little bit, because I think that for some people, their role in an organization comes from their ability to feel like they have all the information, that they're in charge, whether they are or not. So many meetings have no agenda, have no purpose, and they're almost there to help that person kind of validate themselves in the organization. And I have to, whilst I agree, it's kind of rubbish because this is a broadcast and maybe that could have been broadcasted in other ways. I do have empathy for those people that kind of find themselves in that situation because I've definitely been there.
Yeah, I think, and we've got to understand that, we don't always have to take positive intent necessarily, but curious intent is important, I think, and making sure that we understand and seek to understand the why. And perhaps they're not getting the feedback that they need on the plan. Maybe they don't feel like they're getting the collaboration they need, or they don't have a space to be able to share. So often we kind of think that those situations can be all very easy to vilify the leader who's just trying to talk at everybody. And it's often coming from a place of fear or a place of misunderstanding. And a facilitator can help bring out the more collaborative aspect of this. So sure, there's no reason why there can't be a broadcast, but maybe the session could then be used to explore options around that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key you have as a facilitator, right? Definitely empathy is important, I think, for sure.
I mean, it's a fantastic book, which I haven't got by my side actually, which is Sam Kaner's book. Have you got it?
This one,
the big one, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I'd recommend everyone take a screenshot now if you like. If you remember, we'll put it into the deck as well, because this book actually talks about different types of meetings that you can have, and some of it is just information sharing, and sometimes they do have their place. But as John said, is there a conversation that could be had about it? Can you invite people in? Now, one of the fascinating things I firmly believe in, and actually this came from, but it kind of really. The analogy came from a chap called Evan Unger, who I interviewed on my podcast. He was talking about facilitation being like a flight, and that most of the effort in the flight is in the preparation. So if you challenged people on each meeting they're putting in, and I've seen this happen in organizations, to say each meeting needs to have a very clear purpose and we need to have clear outcomes and an agenda. And if you don't feel that actually it's worth your while being there, you can decline it and not go. And actually that preparation, that level of rigor, actually what you can see, that can reduce the number of meetings. And so if it is just one person feeling like they have to broadcast the information, then they have to put the effort into really thinking about it, because people aren't going to turn up unless they see a compelling reason, then actually that can really help change an organizational culture. And I think it maybe sounds controversial, but isn't, that cultural change in an organization sometimes can start from just having better meetings. We had another comment from Richard King. Let's put that. I see so much in our workplace meetings being arranged, which becomes a discussion, which results in a lot of chat and no actions. Everyone walks away in total confusion. Oh, that's even worse, isn't it? And then the person who called the meeting follows up sometimes later with who has done what, and then is shocked when no one has done anything, as nothing was assigned or owned. Now, this is a really common facilitation issue, isn't it, John? When there's lots of talking, the conversation kind of goes out into this kind of beginning of a diamond shape, and then we broaden it, we explore these options, and things never come back in to actions which people really want to then take away and do. So how would a purpose and outcome statement help with that, John?
So it's an interesting thing, because we cover it off in one of our sessions in the Agile Team Facilitator course. We talk about this horrible part of a workshop or meeting or session called the groan zone, where everything kind of loses its way a bit and people don't really know where they need to get to. And before you get to this idea of a shared agreement of what we want to do, you hit the end of the time box and you just got to close, and then you leave. The option of having a purpose and an outcome means that groan zone can be shrunk a little bit. That kind of idea that we can have lots of great ideas and go wild and diverge, but we can shrink the bit where everyone sort of loses their pace and their interest and start anchoring it back into a more convergent, action-driven session. Because if we don't do that, then we run the risk of this waste of time, as Richard mentioned there, really, where we all just talk at each other for a bit, and then it's like, all right, 3:00, see you later then, guys, and everyone leaves and no action's taken. It's a huge waste. And even if you just look at it from a business perspective, you've got 10 people in a room talking about nothing for an hour, the cost to the business is huge. Never mind the context switching that comes from it. So with purpose and outcome, it allows the facilitator to be able to anchor the conversation back into, right, we need to get to a decision point. The outcome we decided that we were going to have was this. Let's aim towards that. What can we do to narrow it down into a closure, into a single action, or something we can take away that meets what we said we would be doing here today? And the facilitator becomes a superpower. If you haven't set that up at the beginning of the session or prior to the session, then things can go a little bit awry. One technique you can use is to recharter the session. You can say, okay, let's pause where we are. Let's have a think about what we need to get out of the session and redo it. That can often be very disruptive and often something get in the way. So I would always look to maybe reschedule once you've got a clear idea of what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome, John. It made me think of when we feel things are going off, then we recontract effectively. We look at the we accept that there is an emergent agenda presenting itself, and is that what people now need to focus on? And what I'm going to do is, and this isn't going to be in the, I'll put this in the deck as well, but I'm going to put in some recontracting questions from something called Stokers, which we'll cover later, that you can ask your participants when you feel something's going awry. There's some questions there. Now, if it's coaching, whether it's facilitation, asking the questions. Is this useful? Like, where are we now? What do we now know that we didn't know before? Given we have X minutes left, what do we need to do between now and then to get where we need to be? And these help people refocus. And when you hit that groan zone, asking questions like this, getting some energy into the room is a really good idea. And this is just something I've never tried, John. I think we should give this a go.
Okay.
Is this idea of and let me just put this in the deck so I don't forget.
Sure.
1, 2, 4 all, well known. People know about 1, 2, 4 all, but what about all 4, 2, 1?
Oh, so go from divergent in rather than start from the out and go out. That's interesting. Not everybody does know 1, 2, 4 all as a liberated structure. Should we give it a quick overview?
Yeah, go on. Give it
Just in case. All right. So the idea is there's a whole section of facilitation tools and techniques by a group of really, really impressive people. These things are called liberating structures, and there's a whole set of these. And they're basically little kind of exercises or techniques you can use to help facilitate sessions, help facilitate workshops, etc. And now these little sessions, one of them is called 1, 2, 4 all. Starts off with a 1 minute session where everybody has their own time to themselves for 1 minute to come up with their thoughts on a particular idea. So if, say, the question was, what should we do to help with this waste of time in the sprint? Everyone has their own thoughts on their own, singularly. Then after that 1 minute, we ask them to come together in pairs. That's the 2. To then, for over 2 minutes, to share with each other what they came up with, but I'm trying to consolidate their thoughts into a top 3 or a top 4 ideas. We then get 2 pairs together, and that creates the 4, and they try to consolidate their pair thinking into a top 3 or a top 5, whatever you decide in the session, to then come up with. And afterwards, all of the team come together and actually share all of the things to try and create a top 3 or 4 or 5 even. Now, the idea here is because everyone's been involved in every stage of it, it's been quite divergent and convergent at the same time. And it's been very useful because everyone's been involved in it. It's not one person talking out. Everyone's been involved in this consolidation, and it allows you to have everyone involved out and in and have those conversations and shared discussions. But the inverse of that is what Ben was just mentioning there as an example of experimentation, really. Should we start with the whole group's idea as the all, and then get them into 4s, then get them into pairs, and then get them to the 1? It's quite an interesting technique, I think, mate. See what we can try with it.
Yeah, I did that 1, 2, 4 all. I think can be great. I think it can be crap. I think sometimes by the time you get to all, you end up this horrible homogenized, like really average run-of-the-mill result that's devoid of anyone's individual kind of heart. But if you were to kind of get all the stuff up on the wall, and this is similar to what Sam Kaner recommends in the book, but you get everything up, and then you get people to say, right, here's everything, and then you get people to get into groups of 4 people who are maybe even the same kind of group, same team, whatever it might be, to take a handful of things that relate to them, and then slowly then say, okay, so what are the things we need to work on? Now let's break it into smaller bits and work as pairs. Say, okay, what do we think is important within what we've taken away? And then do it again. So each person leaves with something that's very much they've decided that's what they want to do. But it's still born from that big, the big kind of all element of it. But it's kind of talking to their heart a bit more.
Interesting.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. And creating something new.
Beautiful.
So now that we've whittled on about a lot of this stuff, let's share the screen for a second, just to show you some of the some examples and some ideas of what we mean by purpose and outcome. So let's do this. So this is a screen share of the deck, which you can all get if you let us know that you want it. So by putting a little message in the comments there, just to let know if you're interested. So do you want to take this first one, John? I'll take a second one. How do you want to work it?
Yeah, sure, that's fine, man. That's no problem at all. So from a purpose perspective, what we talk about here is kind of trying to come up with a why, kind of come up with a statement that allows people to understand why something's taking place. And we often look at, we can look to purpose statements and purpose vision statements, those type of things from organizations to sort of really think about what can be short and sweet, what can be really interesting that pulls people kind of into a session that makes them feel like it's more than just the outcome of the session itself. We want to pair the things together, remember. So here's some examples on the screen. And you can see here that we've got some purpose statements from some organizations. So EY, build a better working world. That's quite an evocative message. It sort of pulls you in. Cancer Research UK, together we will beat cancer. That's quite a big purpose. That'll definitely get you out of bed in the morning. Tesco serving shoppers a little better every day. Those type of things. And then obviously Nando's, why not? To simply create memorable experiences for everyone who has a bit or a lot of Nando's in their life. So the idea here is that we wouldn't necessarily put the vision statement of the organization into the purpose of a meeting, but these are the types of statements that you want to get in that purpose of your workshop or your meeting. You want to try and evoke some level of emotive draw, some kind of way of pulling people in to really want to connect with it. So the purpose is really important. It's the why are we getting together? What are we doing this for? Instead of just meeting to discuss sprint length, it's we can really anchor it into a bigger purpose, a bit of reason, an underlying reason to try and resolve it. It opens people up to the thinking, but also allows them to prime themselves before they even get to that meeting or workshop or training, knowing why they're there. And also being able to, again, go, I don't think I'm part of this, so I'm not going to just join a random meeting. So from a purpose perspective, quite important. We can get these things in place. Outcomes, Ben?
Yeah, outcomes. So it's really important that we really consider what is it we are looking to achieve, what is going to be different, what's going to be new. So can we speak to the head, a change in people's mindset, a change in their understanding, generating a new idea, something which is shared between us. And an example of this could be new knowledge. That's what we're looking to generate within the group. It could be something for the hands, right? These can be ands, they don't have to be ors. Mm-hmm. So something tangible, a plan, a document, an artifact, not a physical artifact, but it may be something you could print off. Hands could also be something like new features, new product backlog items. It could be an empathy map. It could be a change to a roadmap, but that's also, we're talking about here, something for the hands and something for the heart. And this is an interesting one because I think that if you lean too much on heart in some organizational context, people think you're a bit of a, I don't know, maybe not taking it seriously, being a bit of a hippie about it. And there's nothing wrong with being a hippie about it. I like tie-dye as much as the next person. But sometimes in organizations, they don't appreciate tie-dye. So if you're saying an outcome is buy-in or new focus or new energy, then you've really got to deliver on that. But do consider how you pair that with something for the hands as well. Now, on the screen, it's not that great to see, but it's a bit clearer in the deck, and we'll kind of get this fixed up. But what we've got here are some purpose and outcome examples from the Agile Team Facilitator course that John and I run. On the right-hand side, we've got a purpose, which is to increase your confidence in being a facilitator of Agile teams. So what we're talking about here is saying that this is hopefully what's going to get you out of bed to come along to day 2 of the course. The outcome is the acquisition of tools and stories to help you be a better facilitator. So that's what we're talking. We're talking stories, something for the head, tools, something for the hands, and being a better facilitator, something for the heart. Okay, so we're trying to wrap all that together. And then what we've actually got on here as well, and this may be something we deal with when we get back in the kitchen, John, and work on our next bit of tapas, is something called a question-based agenda. I got this from a wonderful lady called Philly Lander. I'm not sure where she got it from for her own creation, but big up, Philly. Thank you for the purpose and outcome as well, for inspiring us on that. And what you'll see in the deck are some questions. And what we're looking for with the question-based agenda is that by the end of the session, people will be able to positively answer the questions that are posed there. Now, we need to keep an eye on time, John.
We do.
We need to facilitate ourselves. There was a comment that came up, which hasn't come through on our tool here, but I have seen it in the chat in LinkedIn from Joris, which is an alternative to the grown zone equals divergence. And I think that's what you were saying, John, wasn't it? Actually, when we hit the grown zone, when we diverge, and things just get really painful. And what he's saying is actually you can look for emergence and dialogue, more short, me, we, us, breakouts, debriefs, setting clarification, building aligned understanding before going to solutions and actions. And that's very much in line with Sam Kaner's work. So I think, Joyce, thank you very much for sharing that. I think you said here that was Pepe Numi, facilitator at Great People. So thank you very much for that. Great advice. Great advice. And aligns really well with the ideas of in Sam Kaner's book.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and that's really good. We've taken some of the screenshots of that grown zone and the kind of different areas, and some of the stuff you can take from that with the page on the deck as well, actually. So some further stuff to explore as part of how to get rid of that grown zone, get those conversations changing for sure.
God damn that grown zone. Right, John.
Yes.
We've got 32 minutes in, meaning we've got about under 28 minutes left. Given that we have 28 minutes left, what shall we focus on next?
Well, I think now we've got purpose, outcome, and question-based agendas kind of sorted out. One of the first things we want to do when we do get into a workshop, a meeting, a facilitated session, whatever it might be, is working agreements, I think, is how do we help set the stage of how we're going to work together as a group of people. And I think this is such an important thing, because if you start a session off and you're not understanding how we're going to work together, the types of things we might want to actually achieve, and the ways that we're going to do that, then again we're putting in the opportunity for divergence down the different rabbit holes. We've got people who may not respect the space, they may not respect each other's view. You may have that person, like Rich said before, of one person's voice just taking over the whole session. So working agreements can be very useful, and I think that it can be an extremely helpful thing to get people started. And I tend to use these in workshops. I'll draw it out using pens in my Neulands and getting out there as well. But on these ever kind of present remote sessions, I tend to use online collaborative tools like Miro or Mural, very similar type of tools, which are essentially whiteboarding applications. And it allows us to share stuff on screen and help people kind of participate as if they're in the room. Because if you're remote, I can't physically give them Post-it notes to help them kind of actually contribute. So I'd rather do something that does make it interactive and engaging. A set of working agreements is essentially something that we can put in play to say, here is a group of things that this is how we're going to work together. I've got a handful of these that I use time and time again. It seems to work very well in both the public domain when I'm doing training, in the private domain we're working with clients, and it seems to set the scene really well. One important part of working agreements, however, is they should be co-created wherever possible, or at least collaborative in the nature of how you do it. So it's always good to start with something, but also open it up to the group to say, what else do you need to help us? Ben, could you share that page on the deck that we have?
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's slide.
Yep, as Macho Man Randy Savage would have said.
Yeah, would have said. Yeah. Thank you very much. So as you can see, this is in the Miroverse, which is essentially a big template library that Miro use. And this is published there already. And as you can see, on the page there's a link as well in the deck, so you'll be able to go and see it as well. But essentially what I use here is some of the Scrum values, because, you know, I'm a Scrum trainer, so I'm going to use Scrum wherever I can, and a few extras as well. So I'll say commitment to the time box is super important, which is the top left, and commitment to our to each other. So start and end on time. If we're going to have a really long session, so it's a 2, 3, 4 hour session, then maybe we'll put some regular breaks in. Let's talk about when the breaks will be, how long they'll be, how we'll measure our time, that kind of thing. And then we've got focus in the middle there. So this is actually a logo of Microsoft Outlook, because that was a client I was using at the time, was Outlook. I've changed this again since to like an I, but essentially focus in a session. Like, don't try and do emails, don't try and do side of desk things at the same time as doing a session. Be present in the moment and have the permission from people to say, do you know what, if things do happen, because life happens and, you know, real emergencies happen, then just let us know. But try to be present for most of the time. We are, as humans, are not evolved to be multitaskers. No matter what we think, we're context switchers, and we can context switch extremely quickly, but there is a cool off period for that context switching. So as we kind of look at an email and then somebody says something and their voices go up in the session, well, that was a question. I'm sorry, what did you ask there? What was that? I was distracted. I couldn't really get to where you were. I'm not present at the moment. It's a waste of time. So be present and focus within the group. Respect each other, really important one, and respect each other's opinions. That's a really important one, I think. Be open to new ways of thinking, new ways of learning, open to other people's opinions, really important, and have the courage to ask the stupid questions. And Ben and I are quite well known for this. We're not afraid to say, excuse me, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Because it's okay. We're going to try and create a safe enough space for people to feel safe by saying it's okay to ask the questions. We also got a few at the bottom there. Vegas rules apply, which means what happens here stays here. It's often what we use in training sessions, because it's not a performance management meeting. It's a facilitated session. It's an opportunity to not feel threatened that if you have something that's open and out and might make you feel a bit vulnerable, that is going to be a problem. So Vegas rules apply. Use the chat feature, especially if it's on a remote session like this, so that we can keep track of chats if we have those kind of questions popping up. And I always invite people, if the technology allows and they feel safe enough to enable their cameras, because we get to see a lot more from them. We can engage as humans a lot better if we can see that, and we don't lose levels of intent if we go from in the room to on camera, from camera to audio, and from audio to text-based. We lose layers of intent all the way through that journey. The more that we can see people, the easier it is for us to connect as humans, which is another reason why we have regular breaks when we have these big sessions for long periods, because it can get quite exhausting being in front of a camera. So I usually start my sessions off with these type of working agreements. And on the right-hand side, I'll say, what else do you need? And ask people to add post-it notes to those things. If it was in the real world with a poster, they'd be doing the same, but with real post-it notes. So as you can see here, people saying, be ourselves, or let's all have some fun. Can we mute when we're not talking? My puppy likes to bark. So people are mentioning things that are happening. And because of that, people feel that they're accountable for themselves and each other, and they can feel more protected. And what I also say here is, put your name on the board if you agree with these working agreements. And invariably, we get everybody's name on there. But if we don't get a person's name, there's an opportunity for a conversation about what else they may need to feel safe in the workshop and to understand how to work together. So working agreements, super useful. We've got a purpose. We've got an outcome. We know what we're here for. Let's just agree the way we're going to work together. I think it's a super part of facilitation. If you don't set the scene properly, then people don't know where they stand, and it can get a bit uneasy for people. Any questions, thoughts, Ben?
That's brilliant. I mean, you can't put too much emphasis on the necessity to start well and to contract, to make sure expectations are aligned. And I think those working agreements are fantastic. It's a great, really, what's the comprehensive job there? Really explaining what it's all about. So now I've got not a lot to add in that respect. But I was looking at the notes. And on the notes, was it on this one? Yeah, we're going to talk about the 6 trumps a little bit, weren't we? And then we're going to talk about some of the tools.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been busy beavering in the background.
I can see
on my tools. So I was going to show off some nerdy stuff for people.
Oh yeah, I do. So it's really good.
Nothing too fancy,
Oh, okay. Fine,
but
fine.
fancy-ish. So 6 trumps. So the 6 trumps. Comes from Training from the Back of the Room, and Training from the Back of the Room is an awesome school of thought. It's a great book, but it's also a fantastic course, and the course really adds the skills into the book. And the book's a great compendium of different activities. It's 65 ways to step aside and let people learn. But actually, the course adds a lot more to it. But don't be mistaken for thinking that actually, the 6 trumps and Training from the Back of the Room is just for training. Oh no, not at all. Training from the Back of the Room is actually a wonderful way to focus on improving your facilitation. So we won't go over this in a huge amount of depth. If you look up Training from the Back of the Room, go to Sharon's website, you'll find a lot of information on this. If you want to get, there's some fantastic people offering this course. My course on Monday is now sold out. It's the only course I run which consistently sells out, actually, which is a really lovely thing, because people love it. And so do Google for 6 trumps. You can find a vast amount of information on the internet about it, or you can drop me or John a note and we can kind of give you a bit of direction or some ideas. But what we're saying here is, when you're in a workshop, don't always rely upon words to articulate something. Get people to think of images. Images can be stories as well. They can be metaphors. It doesn't have to be something actually physically up on a wall or on a screen. Instead of just allowing people to listen to you lay out some instructions for a workshop or meeting, or listen to somebody give some information, get the people talking, because talking trumps listening. Whenever you can, get some movement. So if you're watching this now, stand up, have a stretch, touch your toes, whatever you fancy, but just get some movement in. Cross your arms and then try and cross them the other way. Anything to get some movement in will help us stay engaged, help us get more oxygen around our body, and get the heart pumping a little bit. Whenever you have a situation where people are just having to read something, get them to write it down. So if you're laying out what the activities are for a workshop or the agenda for a meeting, have people write it down, or give people an exercise where they have to fill in some blanks. But writing will always trump reading. People will remember what they write down, not what you are reading to them. Always shorter trumps longer. So we go for small chunks of information, small activities as a guideline, no longer than 10 minutes on any one particular thing. It's always going to help increase the engagement. And different trumps same. The more you can do something that's a little bit different, the more likely you are to keep people engaged and keep people on their toes. So anything you can do that's a bit different can help. John?
Yes, mate.
Anything you'd like to add on the 6 trumps?
I think I think it's really important stuff. I've just been delivering training for the last 2 days, and all the exercises were really small chunks of exercises, and they were ranging from lots of different things, from card sorting to discussions to getting their ideas on pages, for using images and dropping them in, to doing all manner of things. And because, although it's 2 full days worth of online training and it's all live, because there's lots of small chunks, it feels like the pace is enough for people to get through. It doesn't feel like a one big, long, drawn-out conversation where I'm droning at them for 2 days and they just sort of fall asleep and drop off. Like, we want to keep the energy levels up, and that's one of the reasons we keep those small breaks as well.
The last thing you'd ever want, John, is to go into a breakout room and hear someone snoring.
I think, did we? I don't know if we did do that.
Definitely did not happen.
I'm not sure if we had that before. I'm not sure. I can't talk too much about that.
So just keep an eye on the time. We've got about 15 minutes left, and we've got a couple more things to go through. And I think actually the last 2 we've got are actually, I think, for me, they're the icing on the cake. They're the cherry on the top.
Nice.
So we're going to be talking about tools. So Miro and Mural to create a collaborative environment, but also OBS and Ecamm. Now, I wonder, John, given the time that we've got, shall we assume that people kind of understand Miro and Mural, and we've kind of done enough job at pitching that, and we maybe talk a little bit about some of the nerdier, more intriguing things that we can do?
Yeah, I think so. I think, in short, Miro, Mural, whiteboarding applications, everyone can see the same thing and to move stuff around. It's like we're in the room, but online. We'll put some links in there. Both Miro and Mural have online kind of learning videos and how to use them and all the rest of it, and to use them to start off with it free. so it's easy to get started. We'll put some links into the deck for that. But
Yeah.
I think the nerdier stuff is where you shine with some of this stuff, mate. So
I'm not going to go like all out on it.
well,
But what I do want to do is just show people some of the things that you can do with relatively little experience. Now, as a caveat, there's always been 2 workshops that people have always asked me for, particularly Matthew, who isn't here today, I don't think. Matthew, if you're there, let me know. I delivered on one of Matthew's desires, which was to create a systems modeling workshop. And this is what you're probably seeing. If you follow me, the new systemic improvements modeling workshops we're launching, that's around systems thinking. The other workshop is around something called OBS. Now, OBS is an open source platform, which means that anyone can download it and use it for free. But it's incredibly powerful. It's so widely used by streamers, by professional videographers, all kinds of people. It's incredibly powerful tool. But what it does mean is that when you are facilitating a workshop, or particularly when I know we find it useful when training, is that you can do some nice little quirks and tricks to help that really emphasize that different Trump saying. So you can do very simple things, where you can kind of flip yourself upside down, which is somewhat trivial. I'll put myself around the right way. You can easily kind of add in other cameras if you have them. There you go. There's two of me, and you can move things around. Okay. And you can also do silly things like, if you really wanted to, you can go mobile, and you can use your mobile phone as a camera. There we go. You can have the full tour of my office, and you can see me there. Hi. There's my Akira poster. But you can do all these kind of things. So if you really, there's my half-eaten apple. If you really wanted to spice up your facilitation or your training when doing things remotely, then you can check out a tool called OBS. And one day I will do a workshop on it. It looks maybe a little bit scary for some people. There's quite a few different settings and all kinds of things. Here you go. You can kind of see me and me. But this is where we do all the controlling from. And so there's little things that you can do that just ups your game a little bit when facilitating, whether that's doing fancy reactions to things, celebrations, if you want to kind of do something different to make yourself look different or even sound different. OBS is a very powerful tool which just unlocks all of these different things for you. Now, the easier probably alternative to this is something called Ecamm. Is it Ecamm Live, John? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's Ecamm Live, yeah. So Ecamm Live is very similar. It's a paid-for app, however, and similarly, you can have a bunch of shortcuts to do different things to make them really interesting with it. I've not got mine running at the moment, actually, just because I didn't want to sort of interrupt the stream with my virtual camera. But one interesting thing that I do have, which I hook up to my LCAM stuff, and you can also do for OBS, is physical tools like a Stream Deck like this. So you can see these shortcut keys that kind of can be clicked, and then you can press the buttons on these shortcut keys. I can turn off my big light and turn it back on again using the simple button. And these are all programmable, and you can have things, as Ben was showing there, with his video filters by putting like waving hands or countdown timers that come over the top of the screen, and it all just intersects your video stream and puts it onto it. So very interesting way to do things. It's quite easy to get started, and you'd be quite surprised how much impact it can have to your facilitation, and also can look just a lot more professional in the way you do things.
Yeah. You can really push it as far as you like. I think one of the most practical examples of how this is used in a facilitation setting is just for timers. To be able to show a clear timer. We use it on our coaching course, for example. I use it on the coaching course when we are listening to coaching conversations. I can leave my camera on and just make sure that they can see. But people can see the timing. Dave. Oh, hello, Dave. You're right, Dave. Dave. They massive, like more certifications than I think any other human. He is an avid learner. So I'm pleased that you're here, Dave. Stream Decks are brilliant. Ecamm's rather good. A Stream Deck with OBS, you have production quality, effects and things that you can use and have it at a push of a button. It can be great. Now, it's a nice little extra icing on the cake thing. What it will not save you from is being really rubbish at facilitation. So
Right.
take what we said, but if you want to kind of up it and have a little play around, then do check OBS. And if you are getting stuck with OBS and you want to know how, or Stream Deck, and you want some advice on it, drop me and John a DM, and we can see what we can do to help. Now, the last thing we were going to cover today, was it the last thing?
Maybe. Given the time, probably.
Maybe. Was kind of bringing it back full circle, like that.
Nice.
And yeah, exactly. So Hassan has made a very astute observation here. Now, I'm not sure if you're doomed, but what we are saying is that facilitation skills are an incredible benefit to being a decent human. And if you're in the game that we are in, and you're helping people democratically reach a decision which they all agree in, and then do something about it, then I would say that you're running a risk. You're gambling with success rather than trying to achieve it. So maybe not doomed, but you could probably be better.
Let me add to it.
Go on.
All right. And thank you for the question as well. It's a great statement, I suppose. The comment on it is that we can all be better. We can all get better. I think part of it is recognizing that we possibly need to. It's the first stage of getting over any kind of problem, right? Recognize we need to get past the problem itself. I think part of it is that we weren't kind of molded and born to be great facilitators. We're good facilitators. We like our facilitation. We can always be better. What we're trying to say here is that recognizing that if you set yourself up with a purpose and an outcome for a session, it's going to make it easy to facilitate because you can point back to it and say, this is why we're here. If you have clearer facilitation tools that allow you to visualize the flow of the work and to have those conversations, it's going to help you as a facilitator. It's another tool in your tool belt. If you have the notion of that kind of divergent, convergent thinking coming back into those questions and trying to get people collaborating on things, it's going to be a better session. It may not be perfect the first time, but if you go into a workshop or a meeting and there is no purpose, there is no outcome, you don't have the tools, you don't have the capability there, it's not going to be great. So doomed, maybe not the right way. I don't think we're saying you're doomed, but you can prepare to help yourself through this and can help, if you're in service of the people in the session, and that's what we're here is neutral process holders to facilitate the session, then there are things you can do to make it way more interesting, way more fun, and actually more impactful by just getting yourself set up ready to go with some of these things. If you're not great at facilitation, there are great courses, there are great practices out there. I think the thing to do is to get started. That's the most important thing. You'll learn so much by just playing with these things and trying to get through it.
And I think what I'd love to give you all to avoid that kind of that situation where maybe you are feeling that you are doomed is just to give you a really easy set of questions to ask yourself to help you prepare for your facilitation. So what I'm going to share my screen and spend a couple of seconds going over this, because this, I think, is something that can really help you kind of get better, right? To avoid that kind of, oh my God, we're doomed. Now, the model is called Stoker's. Let me just think I can tuck myself in the corner there. There we go. Then say, like, what would they like to be different by the end of their time? So you got these people coming along. So I might think my voice may have cut out for a little while there. Apologies for that. So what we're talking about is ask yourself these questions before you go and set up a workshop while you're planning it out. Ask yourself these questions. Number one, what do they, i.e. the participants, need to think about in the workshop or meeting? Okay, spend some time. That's your purpose. That's your outcomes. Yeah, thank you. The sound is back. Now it's just me trying to arrange a little treat for you all. So one, the subject, the purpose, right? Tune into that. Do your research. Think of this as a product. Talk to the users. Number two, given that you have a certain amount of time, what do they need to focus on? So you're going to have 60 minutes. What about that thing do they need to focus on? The outcome, what would they like to be different by the end of their time together? So ask them, do your research. Yeah, we're going to spend an hour looking at this topic, but what do you need to be different by the end of that time? Then ask them, but how will you know that you've got what you need out of it? So sure, you can say you want to be different, but how will you know that you've got what you need? Also, get some of their ideas. Say, how are we going to do this? Right? You can ask yourself this question and you can kind of delve deep and have a think about it, but ask people, because maybe there's people that don't get along. Maybe there's things that have happened before which didn't work. Maybe there's some triggers you can avoid. So asking them, how are we going to do this, gives you some ideas. It doesn't mean you have to do it exactly as they say, but what it does mean is it gives you the opportunity to really tune into where they are at, meet them where they are. And then maybe, and this is one thing that you can ask them and do consider yourself, like, where should we start? So from a contextual perspective, like the thing they need to think about, like, where do they think is a good place to start with it? But then also for you, once you have that information, like, where should we start? Like, what's a good activity? What's a good frame to kind of address this initial point? Then all the way through, ask yourself and ask other people, is this useful? What do you know now we didn't know before? Given we have X minutes left, what do we need to do between now and the end to get to where we need to be? So these are fantastic coaching questions that you'd ask at the beginning of a coaching conversation. And I think this is a fantastic way to really set up your facilitation for success. John, any thoughts?
Can you hear me okay? That's the first thing. I think you can.
I think they can hear you, John.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just checking because we lost you, right? I think there's some great cards which you can buy for these stokers as well. So I think it's really useful to have these as little kind of primers to like sort of read out in these kind of conversations. Like they can help format, if you wanted to, they can help format the question-based agenda. You know, there's an opportunity there to use these type of things to say what can be different by the end of it, what we expected to get out of it. I think it's really useful to ensure that we've got a complete participation from everyone in the session. And I think if you can use something like Stokers to help you with that, it can be extremely useful. Again, it's another tool in the tool belt to be able to help you become the best facilitator you can be. I think we have like 30 seconds left, Ben.
Not long enough.
No.
Is what I say. Not long enough. Well, thank you everyone for coming along. For those of you that have put some comments in there saying you'd like the deck, we will be in touch. Apologies for the lack of sound. The lack of sound was because what I wanted to do in favor of Hassan's comment about the fact we might all be doomed is that I said what I was going to do was I want to say that actually, let's say what we want to avoid is any kind of big explosion. Some slow mushroom cloud. This is what we want to avoid. So there we go. That's me nerding out a little bit there. What we want to do is help you avoid this, that thing. Sorry, I said that. I should have noticed it. And actually become better, more comprehensive, more enjoyable, more happy facilitators. And we hope that our little tapas today has done something to contribute towards that. John, any closing thoughts?
Well, on that bombshell, I think we're done.
Bombshell. On that bombshell.
We'll do another tapas facilitators session in a month's time. We'll get the dates out there. Thank you so much for taking part, guys. We love having these sessions and we love hearing the feedback. So please let us know how we did and what we can do next time. And
do you know what's very cool, John? What's very cool? Normally, these types of events, it's that 50% thing, isn't it? Like, I know 50% of the people that say they're going to come actually come along. Do you know what? Actually, like we had more than 100% of the people that signed up.
Oh, amazing! That's great news.
more than 100%. So thank you for everyone that clicked attend and attended. Thank you for everyone that just stumbled upon this and hung around. It means a lot. Lovely way to end the week. So there, have a brilliant rest of your day and life if we never see you again. If you have any ideas of things that you'd like us to cover in a future Tapas session, or if you apart from a live cooking demonstration, because, well, that's not really what you do, is it? But do let us know. Any problems you're facing, things you want to get solved, do let us know, and we will craft a special session around that. And that being said, John, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him. See you later.
See you later, everyone. Thank you for coming along.
Cheers. Bye.